we haven't been taught how to cooperate, how to work in a team, how to work in a group. We are, as I was saying before, far from cherishing our freedom and individuality, but the next step would be being able and knowing the benefits of working together. We are so far away from that. I think it goes back to the problem of education, also to the problem of our past, the previous system, I mean, that was not encouraging that. But in terms of education, we don't have courses on leadership, courses on, that would encourage the youth to actually work on these things. So I'm observing people in Slovenia. Whenever I mention something, they don't really understand what it means to come together and work on something. They don't. To them it's a foreign thing. They know what they. An example. I write a column, or Žiga writes something on a column in a newspaper. A Slovene will read it. His or her reaction will be, I disagree with this little sentence that you have said. And he or she will be talking only about that thing that he disagrees with. He or she will not be talking about, oh, I agree with you, we could develop this a little bit further, we could, I have this to add, or I have that to add. No, his or her action after reading the piece is, I have to attack you, I have to find where we disagree, which leads to we will never cooperate, we will never find common ground where we can produce something jointly. And I think that kind of mentality leads to no progress, no new things, no development in terms of economic field as well as in other fields.
So I think there are two notions which are coming in: the notion of envy and the notion of fear. There might be new developments which you don't know, so you fear. You want to have haste. It's a risk. You're risk adverse. You don't want to fail. And I think there's also being afraid of competition. There might be somebody else who might be the boss of myself all of a sudden, and it would stand in my way. So it's not. We also have it. We have it. Let's say we are suffering still on a pretty high level under that. But I think the ground problem is there, and I think it is one thing. I think also one reason of this movement that people are moving out and coming back to this issue is also that we have also, if we think we have free market and we have open market and we have free trade agreement, etc., we are still in very protectionist societies. And that doesn't show in tariffs, but there's a non-tariff protectionism all over Europe, and that also limits innovation, limits also the way how people can develop and how people should develop. And we haven't overcome that, and we will never totally overcome it. I'm not that always, but I think we can certainly improve on that. Your question is what we can do, that was engineers, young scientists, etc., staying here, starting here, and not leaving Europe. Not into Europe, but not leaving Europe. I think we just have to, I don't think we need to give incentives, because that's the wrong way, but we should eliminate unnecessary limits that they can develop. In general, if there would be an exchange, if there would be a same number coming back, why shouldn't young scientists or engineers from Europe go for a while to China or to the US? It would, if they would come back, or an equivalent would come back, I think it would be very positive. But I think what we have is that they go for good. Maybe they come back for retirement, but they go for their effective thing. And I think we are coming again. We would need to have less risk averse, less regulations, or let's say the right regulations, and not over-regulated. Also, a way of taxes. I think it was also very well described in this letter. the way everything was overspent, and the young people inherit a terrible rucksack of debts from the previous thing, because they will have to pay for them when they are retired, when they are going to hospitals, etc. So we would have to do something like that, and I think we would have the possibility to do it, but it is, I would say again, and we have discussed this way, there's a huge lobby against it. There's a bureaucracy who lives well. I think we don't want to change. It might be a political hot potato, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next elections. There's a lot of problems behind it, and I think if there doesn't come enough strong popular movement in favor of that, we will not get it right. And I think that is an issue of our educational systems, to give the people the idea that they have to take the future in their own hands and not trust a nanny state of
it. Just one thought to add, as it was mentioned implicitly before, it is not just about the people that leave and then they don't come back, but also people that have given up on their happiness or fulfilling their dreams, and they kind of stop looking for their dream job, or stop believing they can be a successful entrepreneur here in Slovenia or wherever in Europe. But they also stop believing that something can be changed in the institutions, in the laws, and that is worrisome. I think that is something that we should all pause and say we need to do something. And sometimes people say that I call people on going to the streets and doing something about it, but it's not just going to the streets, but it's actually being vocal and standing up for yourself. I don't think the streets will change things. It's a larger thing that we can do, more we can do. And the EU elections coming up, but not just the EU elections, all the elections that we have, everything that is going on in this society, I think people should, not just those that want to be a career politicians, because those people have different goals, but people in general, they should care about their institutions, their country, what kind of public policies their government is implementing, and what kind of laws are passed. I'm surprised when I encounter comments when I'm following what's going on in Slovenian politics, and I would comment, I would say something, I would just make a statement about what I have seen, and people would be shocked. They would look at me like, why are you talking about this? Or why do you have an opinion? And then they would say, do you want to be a politician? Is this the time when you are entering politics? So they think that by me following what the government is doing, which I should be concerned, because it is this decision they are making, are the decisions that are going to affect me, going to affect my family, going to affect my friends, going to affect my children, and my peers and everyone around me. They think I'm doing it just because I want to be a politician. We all should care about what government is doing, and I think there we need more interest by the public, by the youth. As Žiga mentioned before, people are leaving, not just France, but also Slovenia. And the youth, they should care about. I know no one encourages them, but they should care about and go and do something about it. There are lists of things that people can do.
About your question about this infrastructure for entrepreneurs. I think the legal infrastructure, the financial support, etc., this is one part of the story. The other important element is the positive image of entrepreneurship and also the positive image of capitalism. And this is something that does not exist in Slovenia. Somehow between the lines, they still teach in schools like class struggle and exploitation. Whoever is doing good must be exploiting somebody, is doing good at the expense of somebody else. And if you have such a public opinion, I mean, I don't want to exploit you. I don't want to exploit my fellow Slovenes. I don't want to be this bad guy who is a capitalist. Yesterday there was a rerun of Star Wars on one of the televisions, and there's this scene of the Death Star, you know, with all the evil guys on it, and in the center of the Death Star there's one reactor that you have to destroy to get rid of most of the evil in the world. And this center in Slovenia is actually the monopoly of education, or the monopoly of education if you want, and the monopoly of media and of the media education. And this is the most closely guarded element in the society, and if you try to do anything against that, everybody will stack against you. This was the whole fight that I had as a minister was as a precaution, not to do anything about privatization, not to do any alternative school for media, not to do any alternative think tanks for education policies, limit the existing private schools, etc., etc. And it is stacked, the trade unions on one hand, the so-called experts who are all the experts in these state-run institutions. Of course, the media people who went to the same media school and who were educated in one kind of value system or political system. This is the center of the issue. And privatizing education about education and privatizing research about education, privatizing or creating an alternative about education policies instead of having one national education institute, and also creating alternative schools where people could study to be journalists. This could make a significant difference.
I think some competition education is good, and therefore we have also this discussion about voucher systems. So there could be different schools and people could attract them with vouchers, and they would have to develop and be better because they have a competition. The moment in most European countries there's a state monopoly, basically, or let's say a strong hand because the private schools cost more money, etc. And on the other hand, if you look at countries like in India, it's very interesting. There are a lot of, the state education system is not very good, to say the least. But there are a lot of private schools building for poor people. There's a teacher who opens a school, and people will pay very little, but for them it's a lot of money. But then they try to educate the best. And these schools are in competition between each other. Been once in Hyderabad alone, about 5,000 private schools in India. And the best people, and the best sort of the most best people, it's not high education, it's primary education. The best people are coming out of these private schools. It's private schools for poor people.
Gerd, you are, I think, closing this debate on a positive note. I had a note like that in my memo as well. The fact is, if Slovenes go abroad, they are usually very successful. And so we are not so bad. One of the characteristics that we have is that we very much like to speak about how bad we are, what kind of problems we have, and what's wrong with us, etc. If you want to be a successful columnist in Slovenian press, you have to write bad things about how and what Slovenians are and what's wrong with them and what kind of psychological and other problems you have. But in essence, we are only bad when we are packed together, you know, in one university or in one business, etc. As soon as we open up, as soon as somebody opens us up, as soon as we go abroad, things are much better. And the recipe is also for Slovenia, for Slovenian companies, for education system. Just open up. If you're friendly to foreigners, also more locals will stay here.